As an old duffer teacher who's been around here longer than the school's been here, and shortly after God created the earth, I came to Loyola to have my old students come back and talk to you guys. Because if you can understand being a teacher, I see you guys where you are now, and then to see as you grow and you have an impact on the world is most fulfilling for a teacher. It's payday for a teacher, paycheck for a teacher. And Matthew Graczyk graduated in '89. He has done so many things, it's astounding. I think 15 was the number of businesses he's been involved in, starting businesses. He's got 5 of his own where he actually had ownership. He's starting a hot one now. He was this afternoon out making a long, lengthy, really involved formal presentation to an angel organization for possible funding for it. And he's just so experienced in this stuff, it's beautiful. So we're just proud as can be to have a former LMU student here as one of our Hilton Distinguished Entrepreneur Lecturers. And to make him a Distinguished Entrepreneur Lecturer in the Hilton program, we must give him the Hilton Distinguished Entrepreneur Award. So if we can do that now, John Wolahan, an old friend of his and one of our faculty at LMU.
Wow.
Bring it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
We do the reading.
Picture on everything.
Yeah. I'll make it quick. The Conrad Hilton Distinguished Entrepreneur Award, celebrating entrepreneurial excellence, exceptional achievement, and powerful leadership, presented to Matthew Graczyk, founder, CEO, Zubicon. A creative, dynamic, and powerful entrepreneur, Matthew is a leader who has helped to launch and lead some 15 firms, including 5 of his own. He is a serial entrepreneur whose innovative leadership, cutting-edge businesses, vision, leadership style, and energy are showing that the world of entrepreneurship has indeed been inherited by the young and the young of heart and mind. We're very proud of you, my friend.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
When it is misspelled, I'll fix it.
Oh,
We'll mount it.
Yeah. Put it over here. You guys, as you leave, take a look at it, and I will say what I always say to my audience. You better be up here getting this in a fair amount of years, a short number of years. So I'll still be here to give it to you and be able to say, hey, this is one of our students. Look at this. Look what they've done. Okay?
Yeah, it only took me 18 years. So.
Hey, does he look real old? Does he look gray? By the way, I should introduce his wife, his mother, and his kids are up here.
And my business partner, Brian, one of my 2 co-founders of my new company. So I am a serial entrepreneur. So we'll talk about what that really means, but it's more of a disease than a gift or anything else like that you'll see. I'm very honored to be here and to receive this award. And Dr. Kiesner's always been a mentor to me and somebody that I've looked up to. And I know he asked me not to mention it, but I'm sure you've all seen the Princeton Review. This was quoted in Entrepreneur magazine, but where the LMU undergraduate program was ranked number 10 in the country for undergrad and number 11 for graduate programs. And it's a testament to how hard Dr. Kiesner works on this. And it's affected his health, as we all know, and hopefully he'll slow down. But we've had some wonderful successes come out of the school, especially recently. So I would.
We're sending his speech film to the place that's number 5 next year after here.
Yeah. So I've got a sore throat and froggy voice. So my voice sounds, and I'll be drinking a lot of this to try to keep it going. As Dr. Kiesner said, I've been doing a lot of presentations to investors. We've started a company recently, an internet company. I'll talk a little bit about that. But pitching, we pitch 4 or 5 times a week. So I do this a lot. Not this presentation, but another presentation. So I'll be drinking a lot from my bottle here. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the other speakers that have come before us. I'm going to jump ahead to here. We've had other speakers come from founders of Kinko's, Starbucks, Korean Air, Quiznos, Yahoo, early employee with Yahoo, 1-800-Dentist. It's one of the reasons why I feel so honored to kind of come in the wake of all of these great people. And there are other icons that we all know about internet. For me, most of the most of the entrepreneurs that I look up to and for guidance and so on come from the internet space. So Bill Gates, you might not think of him as an internet guy, but he really is an internet guy now, and some other folks here. But getting ahead a little bit about myself. When I was preparing for tonight, I was thinking about, what do you guys really want to know? Okay, maybe you're here to get extra credit for the class. So I've got an hour of your time. I'm going to try to make the most use of it. If I was sitting in your seat, what would I really want to know from an entrepreneur, talking? And so for me, that was really, I want to give you a little bit about my background, because you want to know that I have some credibility, and I've done some things that you're going to be facing hopefully soon. But also, what is the advice and the lessons that I've learned over the years from other entrepreneurs that have mentored me, just from my own experiences. So that's basically the way this presentation is going to go, so you understand a little bit about my background and from the lessons that I've learned. So I am 40 years old. I just turned 40 in October. I've been married to my wife Holly for 17 years. We've been together for 21, so that's something to say these days. I've got 3 kids. 2 of them are up there, Madison, who's 8, and Logan, who's 6, and Sawyer, who's harder to keep control, so we left him at home. He's a little more rambunctious. I was born on the East Coast, and I lived overseas in France for a couple of years, which was a really great opportunity, and doesn't really sound relevant in an entrepreneurial presentation, but it is. And the reason why is because it's really given me an international perspective and the way that I approach world and humanity and business ethics and diversity. And I find that diversity is a really key success component when you're running a business, to have diversity in male, female, different religions, different cultures, because you approach the same problem from different perspectives, and you always end up with a better solution. I did get my degree from LMU here, in my bachelor's degree in '89. I did not get a master's. I don't know, didn't have the patience for it, or whether I had thought that maybe I would come back and do that to LMU or elsewhere, but I just got too engrossed in the business, and probably got my MBA a few times over in business. So, and I play competitive soccer twice a week. I've started 12 companies, and if you really want to count them, maybe there are 14. And I've been involved with other companies as well. So these are my companies. Now I'm going all the way back to the time I was 14. So some of these are not substantial companies. And in addition to this, I've been involved with a few other companies. So I've got a lot of experience as an entrepreneur. And work is fun, but we have to save the world. So that is a theme that you'll hear at the end of my presentation about our social responsibility. It won't be that boring, so don't get worried, but it is something that we need to think about. So I talked about these entrepreneurial icons and so on. When most people think about entrepreneurs, they think about people on this list. But really, most entrepreneurs aren't guys like this or women like this. People like my mother-in-law, who is basically, she's been an entrepreneur for, 35 years. She runs her own hair salon, and she's opened up 2 other businesses on the side. People don't often think about those kinds of people as entrepreneurs. We think about all of these people, but it's true. Those people are entrepreneurs. So, and here's the point. You have a better chance, basically, of getting hit by lightning than becoming one of the people on a list like that. Most entrepreneurs you don't hear about, you don't read about. They have successes, they have failures, they're whatever they are, and you have to know that going into the game, that you got basically a better chance of making the NBA or the NFL than being an entrepreneur that's gonna have a home run like a Midyar or a Bill Gates or somebody like that. So, if you're going to become an entrepreneur, do it because your DNA demands it. And it's something, when you're an entrepreneur and the more you do it, you cannot not do it. It's just, you think about working for somebody else, you think about working in another organization or doing something where you really don't have control of your own destiny. And, for me, I just can't do it. I can't do it. And if you're infected with that, then you're going to be afflicted with that as well. And the reason has to be because not for fame and fortune. None of those people that you think about that started Google and eBay and Amazon and Yahoo and Oracle, as well as Thomas Jefferson and other entrepreneurs that came along ago, they didn't do it because they wanted fame or fortune. They wanted it just because they wanted to control their destiny. They wanted to do something, and they couldn't accomplish it within the confines that the rest of the world provided, so they had to build an organization around that vision. And that's, for me, that's the reason why I'm an entrepreneur. And if you don't have that, or if you're trying to be an entrepreneur so you can get rich or become famous, you won't have the entrepreneurial stamina to really make it through. And this is something that my father said often, actually. If you ain't the lead dog, the view never changes. And that's really the truth, too. Part of that is about following other people, and not being the leader. And part of it is just not seeing the world in front of you. As when you're out in front, when you're the entrepreneur, you're out in front, you're looking, you can see the whole spectrum of opportunities. When you're deep inside the organization in the finance department or whatever else, you kind of like you're living within your own community, within your own confines, and it's very difficult to see the world around you. So it's enlightening to be out there up front. So this is my career so far. I started my first company when I was 14. It was called Take It to the Curb. And what this business basically did was, for 50 cents a week, we would take people's trash cans, to the curb the day before trash day. Not a business that was really grandiose or anything, but just something that I thought was a good idea to start. And I thought, well, for 50 cents, somebody that maybe didn't have kids would be willing to do that. And then I had some other businesses in the acorn theme, as you can see. I got this name also from my father. Acorn Landscape, Sprinklers, Fountains, and Statuary. And those were all in high school. So as you can imagine, the landscaping business was, we provided landscaping services. And the sprinkler business, we decided to set that up as a separate company because we could make more money that way because we specialized in that. So we could basically charge a premium. And that was actually a pretty lucrative business for me. I remember one project I overbid because I misjudged how hard the dirt was to build all of these different trenches to install the sprinklers. And the way that I had the work done, since I had my friends working for me, I would stick a stake in the ground over here and stick a stake in the ground over here and tie a string between it and put like $18 on a piece of tape on it. And so you guys could take all day long, whoever wants to drill this, dig this hole, I'll pay you $18. Because when I first started doing my projects with them, I was paying them by the hour and they all wanted to goof off. We wanted to talk about soccer and stuff. And, I was the one paying them. So I came up with this strategy of doing it that way, so I had a fixed fee. And the light bulb really went on for me when I first I overbid this job because I went in and test dug all the ground to see how difficult it was to dig, and it was very difficult. So I bid the job based on that, and then I drenched the ground, and I found that I was able to really dig the holes for a lot less than I thought. And I ended up making about $65 an hour on that project when I was 15 or 16 years old in the mid-'80s. So that meant that was a lot of money. And for me, it was like, wow, there's really a world of opportunity out there. And then the fountains and statuary business was basically installing fountains and statues in people's lawns and so on as a separate business. And then I went to college. Well, during that time, I also ran a Max Motors, which was a German auto repair shop, which was pretty exciting for a kid, 15, 16 years old. And during the summer, while the owner was in Chile, and I had the requisite job at Price Club. I was a packer. Back in the day, you remembered all of the numbers for the different products, and then you would call them out. You were called a caller, and you would call them out to the cash register person. This was before the scanners, so like milk was 10887 or something, and I was one of the fastest people to remember all these numbers, and so they would put me and the other fast people on the fast aisles. If you go into a Price Club or a Costco today, the aisles that feed directly to the cash registers, there may be 30 cash registers, but there are 2 on this aisle and 2 on that aisle, and those where they put all the best, fastest ringers. And so we were always on that. And I remember they made an offer when I was going to be going to college. They said, you could become an assistant manager, and the whole thing will pay you, I think it was $27,000 a year. When people graduating from college were making maybe $21,000 a year, and I thought, wow, I could really do that. And I almost made a big mistake, but I didn't. So, and all of this, I'm going into a lot of detail, but the reason it'll matter as I talk about my current business, because of all this experience in the operations running and so on, has led me to draw a conclusion to form a company that nobody else really has come to that conclusion, and it's because of this experience. So then I went to college here at LMU. I started a company called Acorn Group Services, which was basically a management consulting company / software development company, because we were trying to make money in any way that we can. So we provided some management consulting services to different companies in the area. One of them was an Alpha Graphics franchise in Marina del Rey here that I ended up running for about 2 years when I was in college. And I wrote a point-of-sale software application for a retail business that my wife ran for St. John Smith's sister, anybody in here in the volleyball business, but well, he was very popular about 15 years ago. And some other software that I wrote there. And so then I graduated college and got my degree in finance, and I went to go work for what at the time was a Big 8 accounting firm, Coopers & Lybrand. You all now know them now as PricewaterhouseCoopers. But I went to work in the litigation services department, and so basically what we would do is do computer work. We would do business valuations, what-if analyses, but-for analyses to support litigation, so that a plaintiff or a defendant would hire or at the time Coopers & Lybrand, to testify as an expert witness on business litigation matters. So we would testify about what our opinion was about damages, and that partner would go up there and testify on the support that we had basically done, put together in these analyses. So it was kind of interesting. You know, got involved with a lot of interesting litigation, but so I was there for a year, and then there was a spin-off of Coopers & Lybrand called Simpson & Company, and I went to go work there for 3 years. So the whole stint there was about 4 years. During that time, I started 2 businesses. Finders Keepers Tenant Search, which was a business to provide a way to connect people that were trying to rent out real estate with people that were trying to rent real estate. And the real thing that we did was a targeting matching, so that somebody could say, I'm looking for a, you know, an apartment that has a deposit of less than $500, that has a pool, allows smoking, and allows pets, you know, within 20 miles of Marina del Rey or something like that. And so we'd be able to precisely match these renters with the people that were renting it. And we tried a couple of different business models. We tried having the renters, the people that own the real estate, pay to be into the database, or have the other people pay to get access to it. Never really hit it on a business model that worked, so we kind of wound that down and started another company called Mortgage Research Institute. And what this business did was provide information to real estate agents, primarily selling real estate agents, as a way to reinforce their relationship with their clients. Because if you know anything about the real estate business on the sales side, the listing agent, once they've signed that client, they've got that listing. No matter who sells that house, they're going to make their commission. But the selling agent's much more difficult. They might have a couple come in, and they'll take them around and show them houses, and then that couple may end up buying a house through another agent. So this was a branding tool that we provided to the real estate agents, the selling agents, to allow them to reinforce their relationship with that buying couple or whoever the buyer was. And it was real estate mortgage information, so it had weekly updated information about 50 different types of loans. And not a great idea. We didn't make a lot of money on it, so wound that business down. Then I started another company, still while working at Simpson & Company, and this was something that was a little more promising. It was a speech recognition software company called Zygote Computer. And basically what it allowed you to do is to control your Macintosh computer with your voice. And there are basically 2 types of speech recognition software. There's command and control, where you're actually saying, you know, launch Excel, print 3 copies, and then there's full-blown dictation. I won't go into the nuances of all that, but ours was the command and control variety. And we had acquired this product line from a company on the East Coast called Articulate Systems, and our product was called Voice Navigator. And the whole thing relied on a set of recognition algorithms by a company in Massachusetts called Dragon Systems. The Dragon was licensing this technology for $200 a copy to Articulate Systems. Articulate Systems had a really ugly-looking application that was difficult to use that they were selling for about $1,000. They were mainly selling it into, you know, people that had disabilities or otherwise really needed speech recognition. Our vision was to provide a $100 product that basically anybody could use. It would be really simple, wouldn't do dictation, would do command and control, what everybody really needed mostly. But key to that was to renegotiate this algorithm. I couldn't pay $200 a copy to sell something for $100. So we renegotiated those algorithms down to $2 a copy from 100, so from 200. So that was a big step. And in the meantime, this other company, Dragon Systems, was moving into the dictation realm. So there was some other reasons why they were willing and happy to do that. But wow, this really seemed like a great opportunity. So I quit my job, focused full-time on running this company, Zubican, because all these other companies I had other people running. I was kind of like running them as a chairman of the company, but I had other managers running the company. But Zubican looked so, Zygote looked so compelling that I quit my job to focus on it full-time. And so I ran that company for almost a year and was approached by a public company in Dallas called Camelot Corporation to acquire the company. And so I was very excited. I was in my early 20s, mid-20s maybe at that time, and they're going to buy it for basically $260,000 of cash, which today seems laughable, but for 10 months of full-time work, that was a good payday back then. Plus I was going to have some warrants in the company. So we did the deal and did the whole thing and learned my first really tough lesson. This was not a very credible company. They were a publicly traded company. I should have figured out when I was the Series P preferred share. So you can think A, B, C, D, E, F, go all the way to P. Very unlikely that happened. So what this company, there's a shell company, they were acquiring these companies, and they're about 18 months into this acquisition stream, and it was almost like a pyramid scheme. If I had gotten in as an E or an F round, I probably would have gotten my cash and been whole. But they were using this, and so by the time they signed the deal with me to acquire my company, the earlier companies they had already acquired started to sue them. And so, for all I know, Danny Wetrich, their CEO, is in jail. And I don't mind saying it on camera, because I'm not happy. Well, you can imagine I just spent 10 months of my life with no pay, and really had the whole thing planning to make it happen, and was snowballed and didn't go down right. So decided not to sue them because I didn't have the time or the money, and I had to go focus on moving on with my life. So happily out of that, a woman that was on my board of directors had started a new internet company. Internet. This was early '94 or early '95. So internet, heard a little bit about it. I had been a CompuServe user for 3 or 4 years by then, and I had literally, my first modem was either a 400 or a 1200 baud modem. So you could literally see the characters coming across the screen. No graphics, I'm not joking. It's like you see in the old movies. That's what I lived with, and that's the way we all lived back then. But this woman, she had just started this, it wasn't even an internet security company at the time. It was sort of a management company. They would watch packets within a network and try to figure out how to speed up the packets moving around a network. But they wanted to get into the internet business. And right now I have a company with Brian and Joe Kevin, who's our third co-founder, and he was one of the co-founders of this company. So this woman, Marketa, who is the CEO of this internet company, Pilot Network Services, was on my board of directors of the speech recognition software company, and she said, hey, would you join my startup and open up the LA office and build a data center and all that stuff? And I thought, well, I thought the internet was really key. I believed Larry Ellison when he said the network is the computer, and today we all know the network is the computer. I mean, really. So joined this company, and I remember seeing, every time I saw an ad on TV that showed a URL, www.something, I'd point out to my wife and say, look, that's the internet. And they're doing this. And it's going to be very important. And she was, oh, whatever. But now you can't watch a TV ad without seeing a URL listed there. So this is 12 years ago. Anyway, so I knew that would be something that would be really key. And so I joined that company and opened up the first satellite office, which was in Santa Monica. We built a data center out. We got big clients. Some of my personal clients were 20th Century Fox and MGM, Floor Daniel, Mattel, The Gap, Live Entertainment, Capital Group, so big companies. So this was my first, real experience. It wasn't my company, but it had funding, it had intelligent senior executives, had a lot of great people involved. It was very exciting at the time, and we ended up taking that company public, and we were worth $740 million all of a sudden, at our peak as a public company. The next move for me career-wise was to go be a senior executive up in Alameda, where they're headquartered, and I didn't want to move up north. My family's here, my wife's family's down here, and really wanted to stay in Southern California. So we left on really good terms and joined another what wasn't an internet startup at the time, this was in '97, called Digital Evolution, and they were actually building interactive kiosks. So if you went into a mall, back in the mid-90s, and you would interface with a kiosk in the mall, they were building those kiosks. They were also heavily in the CD-ROM business. Remember CDs? You go into the supermarket and you'd buy a game or something on CD. So they were trying to get in that market. So anyway, they had this promising new technology for streaming multimedia technology that now we call Flash, or that was the whole genre of business. And so they hired me to productize this technology that these two developers had been working on. And the company at the time was about 35 people. And I was supposed to productize the technology, turn it into a product line, spin it off into another company, get it funded, and go run that other company. So we did all of that, and that company exists today as Interactive Video Technologies. But at that time, during that time, I should say, that was about the first year that I was there, the larger company had grown from 35 to 85 people and was suffering and needed somebody at the helm. And I had done a really good job with this division, so they asked me to stay and run actually the larger company and hire somebody else to run the spin-off company. So I did run that company, Digital Evolution. We merged with another company, became US Interactive, went public, and we were worth $2.4 billion. And so that was quite a ride. Now, one right after the other, from going to Pilot Network Services, which was, I was basically employee number 8 to going through the IPO, and now with US Interactive, 35 through several hundred employees, and then the IPO there. And so now I had a little bit of cash because I had some good exit there, and I decided to, in the late 90s, 99 I think, start a company called OS Direct, which originally the vision was to sell office supplies through the internet. Now, Office Depot and Staples were not yet selling office supplies online. So this was kind of innovative for the time, but we had a twist on it. We wanted to have a suite of online applications to allow companies to manage their back office operations. So these are small and mid-sized companies to run their payroll, expense report management, all of that through this, what they call a thin client web interface. And we would make money by selling indirect goods and services through the platform. We would sell payroll processing services, we would sell the office supplies and these other things. And we made this transition as we saw Office Depot and Staples start to enter the market. So I was focused on that company, working full time. We had maybe 5 or 6 people. We had raised a little bit of friends and family money, a couple $100,000. We got some services in exchange for equity from law firms and other different folks. And we were on track, and the conventional wisdom at the time was, you know, raise money enough to kind of get you to the next milestone, because the money, if you have a good idea, the money will always come. And that rule was true until the first quarter of 2000. I don't know if you remember that, but the market just fell apart. You couldn't raise money. Didn't matter if you made a car that ran on water, you couldn't raise money, especially if you're an internet company. And that's about the time we were going into the market. It was February of 2000. We went to go raise our second round, which was a $4 million round. We had Red Point Ventures. That was one of the best, most highly respected venture capital firms in Southern California that were going to lead the round. But forget it. You know, once the market crashed in the 4th week of April, everything fell apart. We stayed in business through October, and we said, look, we're not going to raise this money to get to the next milestone, so we're going to wind it down. And we actually had money left over. We returned to all of our investors, one of which was my partner in this company, not Brian, but Joe Kevin up in the Bay Area. So you can see how that rewards you. I gave him a bunch of his money back, and now he's an investor and a partner now of mine in this company. It was at that time that I joined, again, somebody else's company, Point 360, which was a very, I'll spend 20 seconds or maybe 2 minutes on this story because it's fascinating. So this guy started this company. At this time, it was 11 years before I joined the company. He hadn't graduated from high school. It was a post-production company. He was basically, he bought a bunch of VCRs, he put them in his garage, and he would go to the studios. They'd give him digibetas or betacams or whatever, these high definition, or at that time was high quality standard definition film. He'd stick them in, and he'd make dubs, what they call dubs. So, you know, I'll make you 100 different VHS copies, and I'll ship them out, and I'm going to undercut all my competition. He just worked his butt off and really made this business happen. He built this company like that to $25 million in revenue, took the company public, hired a whole bunch of MBAs, and he went to go live in Malibu and surf. Okay, so, and I'm not saying MBAs in a bad way. Brian's an MBA from UCLA, so I tease him about it, but not being from MBA from UCLA, but that I don't have an MBA. But so what this team of people were doing, they were trying to, in the world of post-production at the time, there was something else going on with Liberty Livewire, Liberty Media, which was John Malone's company. They were rolling up all these other post-production companies, and they were doing really well. They'd buy a company with equity, they'd run it, they're taking over the market. Boom, all of a sudden they had about $650 million worth of debt, and they couldn't service their debt. They were not getting the economies of scale and the synergies of integrating all these other companies on the other side. So at the same time, this MBA team had gotten a buyer for Point 360 to do the same thing, do what's called a roll-up in the industry. And so they're rolling up all these post houses. Bain Capital was the investor. Well, Bain was looking at what was going on at Liberty and said, well, you know, maybe this isn't such a great business. Those are a bunch of smart people with lots of money, and they're not making it work. How do we get out of this deal? So they started to look very carefully at all the finances and things that were going on at Point 360 at the time. Meanwhile, Luke, the founder, is, you know, looking for a $65 million payday. That's what he was looking. He was going to make $65 million from this exit, and he's now 12 months in Malibu. So the stock's up at about $18. That was the acquisition price. It had soared as high as 23, and then Bain started to find some things that they really shouldn't be finding. Things like the company was capitalizing maintenance costs on equipment that you really should be expensing. So you're taking an expense that maybe CapEx on maintenance CapEx on this industry is about 15% of your revenue. So if you can take that, all that expense that should end up in one quarter's income, P&L, gets rolled out over 4 or 5 years. So it makes the income statement look a lot better than it was. Now this is before Enron, this was before all the shenanigans that were going on with, this is before Sarbanes-Oxley litigation, or the new rules that came into play. So, so there's some interesting things that were going on. There was, that was going on, so the income statement, the P&L wasn't as profitable as it should have been. Also, there was a lot of bad debt on the accounts receivable, and some other things. And there was a $45 million line of credit with a revolving line of credit with a syndicate of banks that they were $39 million into, which wouldn't have been a problem, except now they were in breach of covenant on all these different components. And so now Bain had a reason to come in and say, oh, we're going to get out of this deal because you're doing all these things you shouldn't be doing. You've breached all your covenants. You're now in the workout group at the banks, and now the interest rate's gone from 5% to 11%. We're going to pull out of the deal. And they pulled out of the deal. So the stock's 23 bucks, 18 bucks, 16, 12, boom. Came all the way down to 8. Luke runs back from Malibu. I'm making a little joke, but he's watching this over the months, and he comes back to the company. He fires everybody. He fired the CEO, the CIO, the CTO, the COO, the president, the law firm, the bank, not the bank, but the law firm, the accounting firm, and the entire board of directors. All the way, cut the whole company down to the 9 general managers that were running each of these facilities that he had acquired. And he brought in 3 new people. He brought in me as Chief Strategy Officer. He brought in Chief Financial Officer, which was my way into the company, a guy that I knew that I'd worked with before, and a new president. And over 2.5 years, we turned this company around. I mean, we saved 500 families' lives. There were 500 employees at this company, and a publicly traded company. And we were in the workout group. The day I joined the company, we were in the workout group with the bank. And what that basically means is they're trying to figure out whether they should allow you to stay in business or whether they should liquidate your company. What's worth more, selling off all this equipment or trying to see if they can fix the company. So it was a tremendous experience. It was fantastic and something I'm very proud of because we turned that company around. I won't go into all the metrics of it, but it was good. So that provided me with a pretty good exit. So financially, so you'll see my my career is going like this financially, right? Because I have some successes, some failures, and so on. The key is to start off with a success so you can fund the failures, or don't call them failures, but. So I scratched an itch that I'd had for 18 years. My father, when I was in high school, had got me interested in investments, and especially what I really liked, because I didn't have a lot of money to invest in high school, derivatives, stock options. And I remember the day I would get the Wall Street Journal in the morning. I'd look at all the mutual funds, and then I'd look at all the derivatives. And I remember the day that I saw a call option. It was like a $25 call option on a $27 security that traded for less than $2. So what that means is, to me, and I was naive at the time, and I made a mistake, but I'm glad I did, a call option gives you the right to buy a share of stock at a certain price for a certain period of time. If it's a $25 call option, it means it gives you the right to buy that stock for $25. And the stock's selling at $27. So that option is worth at least $2, right? Because if I could buy that option for $1, that means I can buy a $27 stock for $25 plus the dollar I paid. So I'm paying $26 for something I know is worth $27. It's called the intrinsic value of the option. So for me, I was like, oh my God, that option is selling for $1.80. I can make 20 cents just for noticing that. And so I had in my mind this idea that if I could suck in all the data from all the global markets, all the different asset classes, so equities, foreign currency, commodities, and derivatives on all these different properties, and we got all kinds of new exotic things like exchange-traded funds and ADRs, American Depository Receipts on foreign securities. If I could suck in all this information from all the different global markets in real time, I could find arbitrage opportunities like this all day long. So I started to look into it. Now this is in high school now, the mid-'80s. A Bloomberg terminal cost $4,000 a month. T1 to your house was $18,000 a month. 1.5 megabits. Now we get 6 megabits for $39. So it was cost prohibitive. A terabyte of storage would have cost me $1 million, whereas now I can buy it for $300. The processing power, these were before 286 machines. These were 8086 machines, or a Macintosh 128K. If you remember what those are. So it was cost prohibitive to do that. But I still had that idea in my mind. So now, back in now it's about 2003 when I left Point360, I could go do it. I went and I looked into it, and I decided to scratch this itch I'd had for so long and develop a trading system based on a quantitative trading strategy that I had. And I spent a year working on the mathematics and all these different different theories we did 15 different investment strategies. And I wrote the software myself in Visual Basic. I'd never written a code of Visual Basic, but I learned how to do that. It's really not that difficult. It sounds complex if you've never done it, but it's pretty easy to learn. So I wrote this trading system. I actually integrated it with the broker's technology system, so it was all computerized. And there was one strategy that we thought worked really well, and by we, I mean I started this hedge fund with 3 other people. After the year that I had spent developing the technology, I got 3 people that I knew to provide money, not to invest in the company so much, but to provide money to trade so that we could develop a track record. So the trading looked really good on paper. We did 42% on our first year of paper trading, and then when we put the money to work and more money to work, we actually only made a 10.3% return. So after all of that 3-year exercise, again, without any pay, I didn't make any money, we ended up closing that business down. So it was too bad, but because it's still a good model. If we had more money and more time, I think we could have done it. But so I wanted to start a biodiesel company. So I started a company called Harmony Fuel. The original idea with Harmony Fuel was to own and operate biodiesel production plants in the United States and to import palmoline from Southeast Asia. Palmoline is a new and an innovative kind of feedstock for biodiesel. Most biodiesel in the United States is made from soybean oil, and most European biodiesel is made from canola oil. And if you're a farmer, you have an acre of land, you get about 48 gallons of soybean oil a year from that, and you can make about 48 gallons of biodiesel. But palmoline yields 635 gallons an acre. So think about the difference in that. You can, with a certain amount of land, you can produce a lot of biodiesel using palmoline. So I was going to own and operate these plants, and I thought, it was a very good time to be in alternative energy. This was in January of 2006. I was going through my Rolodex like I always do when I start a new company. Who do I know that's in the business? I got to the B's, BA, Joel Balbion. So Joel Balbion is a PhD from Caltech. He's a PhD in economics. He was a managing partner at Smart Technology Ventures. And I was asking him, who do you know in the biodiesel business? He says, you kidding, Matthew? I just took over control of this company at Camarillo called Credo. It's been a portfolio company of our firms for 10 years. We've invested $20 million trying to sell into the pharmaceutical and specialty chemical markets, but we want to become a biodiesel company. For some reason, God made this reactor technology that we have perfect for biodiesel. In the biodiesel world, it takes about 90 minutes to make a batch of biodiesel. This company can do it literally in less than a second. Half a second for soybean, and palmoline takes 0.6 seconds. So they've found the market they needed to be in. So they said, Matthew, you're an entrepreneur. Come help me turn this company into a biodiesel company. And so we worked side by side for the last half of last year and took the company public in January 12th of this year, and it trades under KRBF. It's Credo Biofuels. It's best biodiesel production technology in the world. It's going to be acquired for sure by the end of next year. No insider information, just that's my prediction, because some big company is going to want to buy them. But it was at the end of that stint, it was about October of last year, this time last year, when I came up with the idea for Zubican, my current company. I've got, like most entrepreneurs, a list of ideas. On my list of ideas, I have 130 different ideas. And going all the way back many years. I just, I have an idea, write it down, boom, it's there. So I went through my list of ideas when I came up for this idea for Zubican, which I'll share with you in a moment. And there are 12 ideas dating back to as far as 1999 that relate directly to what I'm doing here. In fact, even this mortgage research tenant search thing, as I'm describing it, Brian, talking about connecting and doing this detailed search, all of these ideas kind of came to a amount or whatever last October when I was at Credo trying to find other companies that can machine the equipment, these reactors for us. So with 10 years in the business, knows everything there is about machining equipment, right? They're machining these rotors is the design of this chemical reactor they have. They know everybody in the industry, yet they couldn't find another company in the country that could machine a 36-inch outer diameter rotor. And I thought, my God, there ought to be a place online where people can go and do a very detailed search. I mean, this is a huge problem. It's got to be a huge problem for business to business. I've been involved with all these other companies running operations. I've been faced with this problem myself. Why isn't it solved yet on the internet? And it's been solved many times over in the consumer space, right? You've got no shortage of places where you can buy digital cameras and, whatever it is as a consumer. But for businesses, it's a huge problem. And so the more I looked into it, the more I decided, there needs to be an online business-to-business community for business-to-business companies to get together, to find each other, and to do business together. And that's what my current company is. And I'm not going to really talk a lot about that, but that's what I'm doing right now. So getting into the entrepreneurial reality, so I graduated 18 years ago. For 7 years, I've worked without any pay. These, a lot of these companies, OS Direct, Zubican Today, Stone Peak Capital, other companies, that's the reality. Most of these entrepreneurs that you hear about from Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, those guys, they hit it big at the beginning oftentimes, and then that was it. You started on this big win and you don't really have to move on. But the reality is most entrepreneurs have this process of up and down, and not everybody hits it really big. And frankly, very few of them get this far. I mean, I must be insane or something, but it's my mother laughing because she knows it. It's entrepreneurial stamina is what I call it. So that's one of the reality things, and no one else will get you there. This is so key. If you're the leader of that company and you're leading the charge, everybody's looking for you. You're going to get a lot of support. But at the end of the day, this is your company. This is something that you have to lead everybody. And people have to see you as a leader, and people have to have confidence. And even when you don't feel confident, you have to radiate your confidence because everybody's counting on you to do that. It's sort of like, the captain of a ship when they see the iceberg and the waves. Oh, no, the boat can take it. So you got to have that confidence and be able to do it. Don't worry, Brian. This is not the Titanic. So we talked about the ups and the downs, and hopefully you start on an up because that finances everything else. I live comfortably, but not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. I've had some big wins, but they financed these other dry spells. For the last 5 years, I've made a gross of $105,000. Think about that. I got a wife and 3 kids and a house and all the other expenses. That's not a lot of money for that. 5 years. So it can be dry. So you gotta be prepared for that. You will fail and often, so get used to it. In fact, if you don't fail, you're not doing it right. It's sort of like if you snowboard or you ski and you go to the top of the hill and you go down and you're like, woo, didn't fall down. Well, you didn't take enough risks. You didn't really push yourself that hard. So in business, it's the same thing. You don't want to be irrational or irresponsible. But if you're not failing sometimes, you're not doing it right. You need to take some risks. So I've come up with a bunch of different pieces of advice. Hope I'm not killing. Am I running out of time here? We're okay. We're good on time. So these are in no particular order, but these are just some nuggets of wisdom, things that people have taught me, things that I've learned myself. So think big. For an entrepreneur, for me anyway, my metrics are 3 things. I want a very big market. I want it basically to be totally neglected, that nobody else is in that market, and you're providing something that's desperately needed. I mean, a big need. And that's not always necessary to have a winning business. Look at YouTube. Look at MySpace. We didn't need to share a video. We didn't need to, network with our buddies on MySpace or Facebook, but those are still great viable businesses. Just from my perspective, it's a riskier proposition. I want something that's, that people really need. They talk about, painkiller or a vitamin pill, and both can be good business models, but for me, I like the painkiller. I want to solve a real big problem that no one's solving yet, and when you solve it, there's a big opportunity. So think big. I talked a little bit about the entrepreneurial stamina. Make sure it doesn't become irrational exuberance. I've seen and I've counseled other entrepreneurs with this that I've tried to, they believe in something so passionately and they're going, and you can just tell they're not going to win. They didn't even know they're not going to win, but they still have some money left over, and so they keep going. You need to know when enough is enough, when you're not going to make it. Maybe you come back and revisit that later. So have the stamina, but don't be irrational about it. Oh, this is very important. It's something I'm always trying to teach myself over and over. When you're talking to somebody, the key to communication more than anything else is listening, because you need to be able to address what the other person's talking about. So it's very important to talk and then listen instead of just, what the point is that you're trying to get across, but if you're not listening to that other person, especially if that other person is an investor, which is the case when you're first starting the company, if they don't think that you're listening, or they don't think that you're coachable, or they don't think that you're flexible, you're not going to get their money. And guess what? They've got a lot more experience and wisdom than you do, most likely, and so you can benefit from that anyway. Be very open-minded, not flaky, but be very open-minded, and this is where the international other cultures, other races, other religions, other perspectives on life is so valuable, because most of the big opportunities in the world today come from innovative approaches to existing problems. And you don't get innovative approaches by talking to all the friends that you hang out with, because they all think like you do. You get these innovative approaches from people with a fresh perspective. So this is something that Brian taught me: felt, found, feel. And this is a key strategy to when somebody's talking to you and you disagree with them, but you really feel pretty much that you're right. In order for them to understand that you are listening to them and that you've addressed their concern, use that step. Say, we felt that way. You're saying that you don't think online advertising is a good business model. We thought that might be a challenging business model. So we found that it is a good business model because look at all these reasons, and so now we feel this. And it's kind of a step-by-step way of getting somebody to understand your perspective. Not necessarily to persuade them, but just to let them know that you've heard them, that you understand them, you've ingested that, and you're responding to it. And again, or not again, but don't try to persuade, because that never works. If you're really passionate and believe about what you're talking about, don't worry about trying to persuade somebody. Try to get them to see the issue from your perspective, because if you're passionate about it and they see it from your perspective, they're going to become passionate about it. And if they're passionate, that's better than being persuaded. They become a champion, an evangelist for your vision. And so that's something that I've learned. So important. Surround yourself with the very best. I made this mistake early on in my career with my companies. These other companies I started on the side, I had managers run them. Those were the people that I could afford. I didn't give them enough equity to really be able to recruit the right people, and I suffered. So right now, I try to surround myself with the very best people I can, and there's nobody I figure that's overqualified for a role in the company. And so that's very important, not just in your employees and your executives, but the lawyers that you work with, the companies that you partner with, and all the different people. It's so important to do that. Another thing too is don't be afraid to recruit people that are better than you, even in your own job, because maybe somebody else ought to have that role if they can do it better than you can. And it's the only way that you can allow the company to grow beyond yourself. A lot of companies, I don't want to bash Oracle or Larry Ellison, because he's had a lot of great success, but people look at Larry Ellison, they say, who's the heir apparent at Oracle? If Larry dies tomorrow, who's going to take over? Who's going to run that company? And there is no usual suspect. There's no obvious candidate for that, and it's hard for that company to grow beyond himself. Contrasted to like a Microsoft with Bill Gates, or what happened at eBay with Pierre Omidyar, what's going on with Yahoo, Jerry Yang and Milo, but Jerry's actually back running the company again. You need to not be intimidated by that. Maybe there are other people that can do those things better than you. So that's the only way your company can grow beyond you. And a lot of great companies are started by solo people, like the Facebook guy. What's his name now? Yeah, you all know, right? Zuckerman, that's right. $15 billion guy. Right? Had a $15 billion investment, well, it was $240 million investment by Microsoft about 3 weeks ago for 1.6% of the company, which makes it a $15 billion company. With $150 million revenue, that's a pretty good deal. It's unusual to have a company like that where you just have one person as the leader and as the real founder. Most of the great successful companies are made by 2 or 3 or 4 teams of people, because nobody usually has all the skill sets to really be good in all the things that you need to be good at. So I'd encourage you to find 1 or 2 or 3 other people that you get along with, that fill in the gaps in what you're not good at, and so on. So we've seen that statistically, that most companies are founded by co-founders. Embrace failure. I'll talk about a failure again. It's an education. It makes you stronger. It makes you better. I've always said that if I've got 2 candidates in front of me and they both have exactly the same equal experience, they've all had experience with 4 different companies, and if one person's had 4 successes and the other person's had 2 successes and 2 failures, I'll hire this person every time. Because if you haven't gone through a failure, you can't see it when it's coming, you don't know how to handle it when it's there, and I don't know whether or not you bail when the failure comes, because a lot of people, executives, will leave the company. There are other opportunities. So hey, wow, we're not hitting the numbers like we thought we were going to be. I'm going to go join some other startup. Well, you don't want that person there. You want somebody that's going to stay with you and try to make it through. And if things do have to get wound, that they know how to do that in the proper way. So, and a lot of times failure is not the cause of the people that are involved. It's a function of timing. It's a function of competition, unforeseen things, or just you were too early to the game. So embrace failure, hire failure. Also hire youth, diversity, and experience. I've talked about this before. And with the youth comes also, oops, I think I had, well, I thought I had another slide button here, but besides hiring youth, you want to hire experience. So have a bunch of people that are 22 and younger at your company, and have people that are over 35, because you need both perspectives, and it's very important. Communication, this is something I learned kind of the hard way too. When you're having trouble with your company, your tendency as the entrepreneur, as the guy running or the woman running the company, is to kind of go into your shell because you don't want to talk to anybody, because you don't have good news to tell them, and you want to solve this problem by yourself. But that's the wrong approach. You want to tell everybody, communicate with your investors, with your customers, with your employees, with your suppliers, your vendors, all these different people that can help you come out of this slump and maybe help you solve your problem. So communication is very key. Even we're communicating regularly with our prospective investors, and that's key because they're using that as a proxy to figure out whether or not we're going to be communicating with them after they invest. And that's what they're worried about, that they get the quarterly report 4 weeks after the quarter ends, and then there are problems that they weren't aware of and it's too late to solve them. So you need to communicate often. You are not a focus group. You know what that means? That means just because you think something's a good idea or you want to do something doesn't mean the rest of the world does. And a lot of entrepreneurs get into this problem. They think, oh, this is, I love dealing with hot rod cars, so I'm going to start an online site and sell, aftermarket parts because that's my passion. That might be a really great business, but just don't look into your own heart for that answer. Talk to other people that you respect. Get the diversity, of all these different perspectives, because, you are not a focus group. As you're raising money, raise enough money to get to the next milestone. We did not do that at OS Direct. We were following conventional wisdom. Raise a little bit of money so that you can raise more money later at a higher valuation. You'll be able to retain more ownership of the company. Well, we didn't have enough money to really become self-sufficient. And so when the market dried up, our destiny wasn't in our own hands. So, maybe you won't be able to raise enough money in your first round to be able to take you all the way through self-sufficiency. But get to a next meaningful milestone and then some runway after that to be able to sustain your business beyond that. Choose the right investors. This is very important, especially early stage, because early stage investors, often you're talking about angel investors. So these are individuals, not a venture capital firm or a private equity group, but some individual person, and that person has an opinion, and they often have time on their hand. They want to sit on your board. They want to call you once a week. They want to try to get you to see their point of view and do things your way, even though you're the one spending 60, 70 hours a week there, and they parachute in 2 hours a week to talk to you about your business, yet they still want to drive your decisions. So sometimes that can be helpful when they are the right investor, but just understand that carefully. Talk to other entrepreneurs whose company they've invested in and really get to know those companies. Be likable. This is really the key to success. People want to work with people that they like. So have a good attitude, smile a lot, have relationships with people. Being likable is important. Part of this too, and this is very key with investors, is to have humility and mean it. You don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. You can learn from all the people around you. In fact, I don't know if this is, well, I'll jump to that later, but have the humility.
2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay.
2 minutes more.
All right. All right, so what do I really want to cover here? Do, defer, delegate, and dump. This is one of the things that I live by. A lot of people, so basically what this means is every task in front of you as an entrepreneur, you have so much to do and so much on your plate, you end up getting overwhelmed with this. And you really need to decide to do one of three things with everything on your plate. You either are going to do that thing right now, you're going to defer it to some, do it now, defer it to some other time, you're going to delegate it to somebody else, or you're going to dump it, which means you're not going to do it. And what everybody ends up doing with most of what they do is they put it on the defer list. And that's a real problem. So make a conscious effort in every task that's in front of you to decide those things. The big rocks idea is, you've seen this, heard this analogy of, you have a bucket, you fill it up with big rocks, and you ask the classroom, hey, is the bucket full? And they all say, yeah, it's full. And then you take small rocks and you pour them in, and you can fit a lot more small rocks in there. And the idea that if these are things that have to get done, if you don't get the big rocks into the bucket first, they'll never fit in the big bucket. So always focus on doing the big projects first, because you can get inundated with all these other little things. Now I'm really kind of in the minutia. So This is the other quote that I was thinking of. This is a paraphrase of Galileo. I never met somebody so ignorant that I couldn't learn from him. This is also one of the best pieces of advice I got from my eldest brother, Ed. It was my mother and my father's, they were getting remarried, I don't know, 25-year anniversary or something, and so bachelor party for my dad, and we all got drunk. And so I was talking to my brother, and we're all drunk, and he gave me this advice, and it really stuck with me. I mean, he says, you know, no matter who you meet, you don't think they're smart, you don't think they can contribute. There's nobody that doesn't have something to learn from. So I always look at that. I sit on a plane, I want to get to know the person next to me, I want to find out what they know that can help me, and maybe I can help them. So there's some other points here, but none of them are really key. If I've got 1 minute to wrap up, social responsibility. So this is so important. We have, you know, the education that you have, the opportunity that you have in front of you is something that 2/3, 3/4 of the people on the planet will never have the opportunity to do, right? To get an education, to live in an ecosystem like here in Southern California where you can raise money and you can, you know, form partnerships. With that capability comes the responsibility. You know that more than half of the people in sub-Saharan Africa live on less than $1 a day. I mean, people die from silly diseases that we can cure, you know, with $5 here. So, you know, make sure that you incorporate social philanthropy into your business, and that, you know, you evangelize this within the people that you have influence over, because we need to do that for all the people that will never have this opportunity, the people that are just struggling to figure out what they're going to eat tomorrow and to keep their kids bathed in clean water. So I wish I'd spend more time on that, but that's something that's guiding my reason why I'm always going for these long shot businesses, because I'm trying to amass a lot of wealth. First, to provide for the financial security of my family. After that, everything goes to humanitarian efforts. And think about what a Jerry Yang or you know, a Zuckerman can go to. He can go meet with Putin tomorrow if he wants to, right? He's got not just the money, but he has the respect to be able to go meet with other people with economic, religious, and political power and be a catalyst for them to do good things. And so, you know, I try to challenge you guys to incorporate that into your thinking and into your strategies. So thank you for your time. Actually,
You guys show up here pretty darn soon so I can have you speak. And I'll have them stay up here for a few minutes, a couple of you or whoever might want to come up and just say something to them or ask them a question or anything like that. So thank you all for being here, and we'll see you later.